Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, Twitch chat, and welcome back to Let Us Play. I'm your host, Father Evan. It's good to be back with y'all today for another Spirituality Tuesday. We're going to be diving back into Thomas's Alone. Now, last time we played this, kind of ironically, we got to the internet in the game, and then my internet just went out. So I honestly don't know quite where we left off. So just to kind of summarize is that we have these AIs that seem to be part of a test project that some agency is doing that gained a higher level of sentience and awareness than they intended for. And they have been breaking out of their puzzles, and one of them found the way to the internet and was connected to it for all of 12 seconds, but because he's an AI, that's more than enough time to learn everything. Now, of course, this is a early 2010s game, or late 2000s, early 2010s. So all the jokes were, Icon has cheeseburger and taking an arrow to the knee. So very topical memes, but we're here now. So Thomas now has this great awareness, and he's figuring out what to do with it. So let's see what he does with it.
Sarah was deflated. She'd not even got close to the fountain. She could tell from the earnest expression on Thomas that the information it had imparted was clearly important. Sarah knew her destiny was now to support him.
So I need to get Sarah up to the top. This guy can jump pretty high. So I think the key factor is that I get the big blue square, whose name I'm suddenly forgetting. I think she needs to go, because of everything, she needs to go right here where it's actually on a square. So I think once I establish that, I can figure out where else everyone else needs to go. Okay. She's there. So this little orange square. I wish I could remember their names. I'm terrible at remembering their names. Go up there. He'll go in the corner. Bouncy lady also goes in the corner. But I need Bouncy lady to get Thomas up there first. It's kind of beginning to sound like a musical number with all these bleeps and boops lining up. Okay, let's get your tall friend here to help you up. What the ah! I royally screwed that one up. It's a shame because I feel like I had it and then I screwed it up. So I need to get her down there and then green. Wait. Oh, Thomas! Thomas, you're in the wrong spot! Thomas, the game is named after you. How could you be the one to get it so wrong? That was a noise? Yeah. I tend to make those. I think. Oh, come on. I hit jump. Okay. Put him back. And this should be good. Yes! I did it. Guess that's not... Whoop. Oh, that's right. She can double jump. That's her special ability. She's... Honestly, I need to use her, though, as a platform to get Yellow up and over. Ah! Okay, goodbye, Yellow. Hey, Britt. Good to see ya. Bring her on.
Claire could not accept that this had all been futile. She was a superhero. There had to be a way. Not for her to get out. Red had been pretty clear on that, but there must be thousands of other AIs up there, unaware of their situation. Was there a way to help them?
I like Claire. She's very selfless. And which is impressive because she started incredibly depressed, honestly. She was just like, oh, this is it. The world's falling apart. I'm falling towards water. This is it. And she responds pretty well. Honestly. To being like, oh, hey, there's more. I can do more. There's a hero in all of us. So, I'm doing well, Britt. Need to bring purple back. I find it ironic that Yellow needs a little boost because he's so tall. Come, my children.
Thomas led his friends to the creation matrix, the system which generated the worlds up above. He had a plan. They were going to redesign the world. That's what the humans did. They changed the world to suit them. Why couldn't they do the same?
Makes sense. Means they're learning. It's a very natural self-preservation instinct to want to reshape the world, I think. Not always a good one, mind you. Come on, Orange. We're not going to leave you behind. Thomas does not look very alone. No, Thomas was alone. It was past tense. Now he's not. Properly speaking, this whole game is
Chris
being told
was skeptical.
past tense.
He knew his abilities would be of no use to anyone, but Laura smiled at him. And immediately, he knew he had to do everything he could to help them get there.
Oh, someone's in love. Let's push that there. Let's get green to push this module down because we're going to need that. So I bet we use this. Oop. Only mildly stuck it in the corner. We would do that. Claire can come over and push this button. Which I'm guessing lets yellow out. And I would be right. Definitely got to work together on this one.
Laura had been born special. She understood that now. She was created to help others. If her bounce could be passed on, then this would all have been worthwhile.
Yeah, I had a thought. Yeah, this whole game is being told past tense, technically. Sort of recounting what has happened. And they're very consistent with that in the writing. Like, it's a small thing, I know, but I appreciate the level of attention given to detail there.
Thomas liked the idea of being an architect. He wanted to modify the world to help others. He was sick of these contrived spaces, these intentionally obtuse paths and puzzles. He'd do things differently. He'd empower the AIs above.
Okay, we gotta get her back. Making a mental note of that. That was not a very good jump. Ow! These are weird physics. I do not remember these physics being this weird. I'm enjoying this a lot. And it's a good weird, but it's just I do not remember quite this weird. Yeah, the music is really nice with this minimalist ambiance. Okay, her half of the puzzle is done. Now it's up to green, who's Chris? Oh no, it's up to yellow first.
John's massive jumps were dwarfed by Sarah. For the first time in his life, he felt humbled, not as good as someone else. He realized that he wanted to make every AI up there feel as heroic as he had. He liked the sound of that.
But I like the establishment that we're going through right now of these noble reasons that these AI want to
James
do something,
still felt weird,
be empowered.
but he realized now that everyone else was too. They were a crew of weirdos. Weirdness that would save all the normals up above. The other AIs would escape, and it would all be down to 7 rectangles with very different relationships to gravity.
So they're just stuck in there. Okay, you can't press that though because it's a Claire button. Am I missing a button somewhere? They're self-contained. Oh, I am missing a button. The one right in front of Claire. My bad. So we'll grant her access to down here. Then we can move Thomas on up. Actually, let's use you first, because Claire's gonna be...
Thomas knew he'd never meet Nathan Fillion, or a Transformer. He'd never get to visit Gotham City or eat at Moobies. It didn't matter. If he and his friends jumped into the creation matrix, they could give everyone else in the simulation a chance to.
Okay, how do I need to move these people around? this, I need to move Claire to there. She needs to help the others across here. She needs to move aside so she can actually get back up there in the end. Well, this is like a week of feast days. You know, we had Mary Major yesterday. Today is the Transfiguration. Kind of an important day. Commemorating when Jesus took 3 of his disciples up on a hill and was, well, transfigured before them. And there's a lot to be unpacked from it, and more than any human can do justice in a single moment, because it's such a profound moment of Christological self revelation. But one of my favorite details of it is, so he's up on the mountain, and then Moses and Elijah appear alongside him. Oh, shoot, Claire, I actually still need you there. And there's the reflection of how that is him talking to the law and the prophets, and him as the culmination of both. Oh, I made me just restart. Let's see if I can jump across this. But yeah, I need Claire back. Shoot. Yeah, so Christ is the culmination of the law and the prophets, but there's a really cool detail in that Moses died, and the Bible is very explicit about that, and like very explicit about we don't know where he's buried. So like his death is a very definitive one. Whereas Elijah is very clear in his the end of his life that he's taken up in a fiery chariot, sort of seen as still being alive in a certain sense. And so Christ as Lord of both of them is the Lord of the living and the dead, which is important because, you know, in a sense, it means that those who have died are still in relationship with God, and have that potential and the salvation that comes with it. But there's also the great reality that we are alive in Christ. Oop! Oh, shoot. We are alive forever in Christ. So yeah, if you're ever looking for a spiritual activity, like a prayer activity at a retreat and not sure what to do, start with the Transfiguration. Just do like Alexia Divina with your group and just sit with it, because there is so much to be unpacked and that could be said, and more than ever can be said, from that moment of theophany. Let's keep you there. Transfiguration is a cool feast. It is, and it's a beautiful icon. There's a lot going on in the icon too, because in the icon, so we historically, traditionally think of Transfiguration happening at Mount Tabor. But if you look at the icon, there are in fact 3 mountains: Mount Sinai, Mount Carmel, and Mount Tabor. And it's this really cool theological reflection of both the 3 mountains where God encountered humanity and taught us, but also the way that God literally like folds time and space in on itself to reveal the sun. Church of Transfiguration is where you had your first Mass of Holy Land pilgrimage. Nice. That would hold a special place. Okay, with only minimal backtracking, we have solved this one. Thomas and the other architects augmented the world to suit the AIs. Splitter kept their distance. The system was never taking control from that point. Thousands of AIs were free to escape. Now, this is a new friend.
Gray felt something change beneath his feet. Something had shifted. The shape in front of him hinted at a possibility.
It's our new friend Gray.
Wow. He couldn't do that before. Joe was happy. They'd settled here. They'd not seen another AI for many cycles, and she liked it that way. She saw Sam leap into the shifter with fear.
Oop. Whoops. Gray, why is your gravity inverted? You don't have that ability.
Couldn't work it out. Why was the world letting him do this? It was dumb. It was awesome, obviously, but why? They seemed to be leading him up, and to the right.
Church has really cool symbolism. I hope to see it someday. But I would love to do a video essay on this, on Thomas is Alone, because what we have just seen, and it's so mild at first, but we'll see it kind of explained a bit more clearly. All those 7 AIs basically put themselves into the generation matrix, or whatever they called it, and imbued the world with reflections of themselves, these shifters that allowed other AIs to take on their special mutagens, their special mutations in how they approach the world. So double jump. And you may notice that these other AIs have similar shapes, but they don't necessarily have the base ability, but they have the ability within them to take this on. And this is ultimately letting these AIs go from simple experiments to freedom.
Joe wished Sam would stop. This was just like the time with the pixel clouds. They hadn't seen any for a while. He was always running off like this.
But there's a beautiful self-sacrificial
Sam
nature
was
to
sorry,
it.
and he tried to calm Joe down. He couldn't explain why he felt this way. He just knew that there was somewhere else he should be.
So if I come back here, maybe I just use him as a platform for her. Yeah. Oh, okay. I was thinking that was Thomas's ability. No. That's Claire, or not Claire. See, I'm so bad with their names, but I know who they are. So that's Red's ability to make everything bouncy. Okay, but I need to get... So she needs to stay blue, but he needs to stay red. So I need to... Ah! I was trying to avoid that. Wait. What did I do? Oh, well, that works too, actually, in a weird way.
Paul felt it. There was a whisper to the shifters.
I also love the lighting in this game. Like,
They
it's
had
subtle,
not
but it's
occurred
really
randomly.
well done.
They had been created. He set off.
Even that line, in and of itself, it has some certain theological tones to it, because there's a way in which Paul knows the world, through the world, of something that is created, and knows the creator kind of implicitly through it. There's your companion. There's your companion. There's Paul.
Gray listened to the old man. The shifters had been placed in the world by the architects, AIs who sacrificed themselves to fuel their escape. There was an outer world,
Yeah.
a world beyond the
Oh, maybe that's
confines
fine,
of their
actually.
universe. Up and to the right.
Also, I like how it's all. That's actually the first moment that we've had a very explicit mention of the sacrifice. Like, there's hinting at it before they do it, that they won't get to do it, and you're like, well, what does that mean? But this one is very explicit. Oh yeah, the architects sacrificed themselves for us.
Jo was growing to like her newfound abilities. Maybe Sam had done the right thing after all. It was getting a bit chilly, though.
Okay, so that's just automatically going to turn her blue. Burquida. How would you respond to a Protestant saying, "Do this in memory of me," means the Mass is symbolic reenactment, not a true participating in the sacrifice and meal at the Mass? Ah! I would say the principle of anamnesis. A fancy word literally meaning unforgetting, and a way of reminding us that God that in God's memory is very different. But literally to unforget means to make it alive. Not again, but to simply make it alive, be present to its reality. Here and now. It's kind of like the universe folding itself in on itself. Which if you're going to tell me God can't do that, then I'm just going to have to laugh. But it's also sharing in the eternal and the temporal in one, that it is the commemoration and remembrance, and it is the sacrifice, because we do not sacrifice Christ multiple times.
Gray had left the
There's a
old
lot
man
in Council
behind.
Trent about that.
He had to get to this exit. He had to be the one to get out. A whole world to himself. He had to get there before anyone else did.
Yeah, This Is My Flesh is also a pretty direct one, but that may not necessarily, I probably need to stick with purple here. Yeah. Autumn, imagine Amnesia. So, Anamnesis is Anamnesis. But Omnisus is forgetting, amnesia. Just replace the last A of amnesia with an S, and then add an AN, which is the Greek negative to it.
Paul cursed Grey. He should never have told him. He had to get to the other AIs of the world, warn them about Grey.
Oh, look, we're getting
Stop him.
competing factions. Yep, Anamnesis. But there's a difference between, just doing something to relive it, and there's a difference in participating in the actual thing, and that's what we do in the
Joe
Eucharist.
And Sam saw Grey across the gap. He waved them over. He seemed, well, nice. They helped him to the next portal.
Okay, we're even getting evangelization now, where one of the AIs are like, oh wait, no, he's nice. Maybe he has a point. Jesus said everyone must eat flesh and drink blood to be saved. I'm not in a hurry to do that. Hurry to claim that that thing Jesus was doing wasn't that. Yeah? Let's get you just out of the way. You get to stay there. Are you? Yes, you're a good enough jumper to get there. Burp. We evacuated the facility, cut the network lines, and locked the doors. We knew that by that point what was coming, but we had no idea what to expect.
Team Jump had been together for a long time.
Yeah,
They
Team
were
Jump.
A machine, a well-oiled machine. They could jump like nobody's business.
I forgot about the quintuplets who are identical. No!
They thought as one, they acted as one.
No! It's erased our superpowers! Ruler, we must ruin! I was hoping I could land close enough to Save the power. Oh well.
Paul bowed before the team. He begged them to help. He told them of the outer world, of the cats who couldn't spell, of the liar, Grey. Up and to the right, they answered in unison.
Ooh, that was close. Hit the water there just the nick of time. Maybe I need more than one over there. Well, that's not what I was expecting to work, but I will take it. I'm wondering why they're not just disintegrating in the water. Must be a new feature. Okay, they have the ability to be somewhat resilient in water. Wait. Where are you supposed to go? Oh, right there.
Grey, Joe and Sam continued moving upwards. They had to make it. Grey had told the couple he was looking for a lost friend. He'd made something up about being alone on a quest for lost allies. They had eaten it up.
Okay, that's an invisible wall. Is this all red herring? Why does Grey want to get out of... at the expense of others? I don't think he wants to get out at the expense of others. But I think he's come to a realization of more in his world. That's why that exists. Okay. But I think the shifters and the general work that Thomas and his companions did to change the world has alerted the other AIs in an implicit way. You want to give her a double jump. Hopefully I did not just... I mildly just honked things. Oh, we'll come back to her. Could have sworn Grey wanted to get out alone. Well, he and Paul are having a bit of a fight over the truth, or were. I think they made it up in one of the previous sections where they're like, oh, you know what? They're actually a good guy. Because Paul was calling Gray a liar because Gray was saw the truth and Paul didn't like it and didn't want others to escape. I think, yeah, I could be getting the names backwards, but I think what we're getting is a very dramatic event that changes worldview. And we're seeing how various people react to it. Come on. Come on back. I know that we can get on this platform. We've done it before. There we go. That's a surprisingly tight little window. Don't go for the purple double jump. That's a trap. Hey, we got Team Jump.
The team, along with their spiritual leader Paul, worked their way right. Team Jump were proud of their progress. They'd obliterated all challenges in their path. Yeah, they'd heard of individuals getting stuck on staircases or stepping stones. This did not happen to Team Jump.
No, Team Jump just has to do the same thing over and over and over again. I bet there's a wiki Step Zero that would explain the plot even better, like the intricacies, because I think there might even be more told through other medium. Bump, bump, bump.
Gray could tell they were nearing the exit portal. He smiled to himself, trying to work out the easiest way of dispensing with his allies.
Nope,
when the
you were
time
right.
came.
Sorry. Gray is evil. Gray is selfish. I must have missed a detail whilst talking. That's on me. My bad. I am loosely back. That's all good. I am loosely here. Not that he couldn't be reformed, but he does seem a bit self-centered. Yeah. Yeah, he has revealed his, some of his true alignment.
Team Jump saw the others beyond the wall. They were doing well. Paul tried to shout a warning, but they couldn't hear him. Gray counted 5 in Team Jump. He could take them.
Bad idea, Paul. Gonna put these guys off to the side. Come back to them. They seem to be in their own separate puzzle, essentially. Okay, that's Team Jump taken care of, although there were only 4 of the Team Jump cubes this time. I will get up there. This feels like one of those, you know those puzzles where there's like rings of different sizes? And you have to get them from one side to the other. There's 3 pegs. But you can only, there's rules like only putting it on top of certain, like, you can only move one at a time. You can't put a smaller, or a bigger one on top of a smaller one. This feels kind of like that. Also, I'm pretty sure these 2 areas are just the same, but inversed on each other, which is visually very cool. Because this is like the same pachinko-style slots that we started in. With the jump team over on the other side. Oh, no. No. Say a little gray cube. The Towers of Hanol. Yes, thank you. This kind of feels like that, because I have to be constantly stacking and unstacking in reverse order. My high school geometry and algebra teacher actually taught us the math, essentially, of like how many moves it takes. And of course, because it's all exponential, it's nuts. But once you've solved kind of 4 rings, you can get it. But it's just like after that point, it's like, oh, okay. You're welcome to share it, but if it's vulnerable, I think that would
Sam
probably
was
be better as a
worried
DM.
how
But know that I
silent
am,
Gray had become.
praying for that
He
intention.
wasn't
And
responding to
if you
Joe's
send it via DM,
questions or
I'll be praying
acknowledging
for
them
it
at
in a
all.
very special, intentional way. But I leave that. Ooh.
Were they really trying to save his friends?
Oh. Ah, I had that. Oh, I did not have that one. The really crazy thing, while there are now myths about Buddhist monks moving rings around until the end of time, towers of Hanoi were invented in the 1800s in France as a math puzzle. That does not surprise me. That sounds like exactly the kind of story that the 18th century or 19th century French people, particularly mathematicians, would say. They're like, oh, we need a story. We need a... You know what? I'm gonna... They were invented on Korriban. Here, friend, I will give you a platform. Is that a side quest on Korriban I missed? Because if so, I do not regret skipping it. I mean, I guess there is kind of, it's just kind of like a really simplified one. I don't know. There's a lot of puzzles in that game that are just like, move the thing from point A to point B. Yeah, then feel free to share. BioWare has a formula. Yeah.
Paul knew the path ahead wasn't safe. He told the team to wait, that he'd come get them when it was secure. Gray had to be stopped, whatever the cost.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Britt. I won't be able to look until after stream, but know that I'll keep it your intention in my prayers. Ah, gravity's got all weird.
Commentaries.
You may notice there's that word.
The Pixel Cloud had been separated from its allies for some time. She'd not heard the order to retreat. She was shocked by the appearance of the 4 aberrations below.
Oh,
The
Pixel Cloud.
old one seemed to be leading the liar to an outcropping. It was within her reach. She could remove them both. The couple could wait. They weren't going anywhere.
Okay, so purple can't get through there. Or there. Unless we utilize one of these friends. Why don't you take on purple? Just had to tape up and bandage someone who got substantial cut a couple minutes ago before it sat down and started chatting. I was expecting to use your lifeguard skills as an office worker. Ooh, thank goodness you have those skills, though. I hope that person is okay. My nose. Okay, so we definitely need this brick up there. How do I think with that first start, I think I should be able to do this way now. Maybe? Maybe not. Okay, now that everyone's had a turn being the bouncy one. May as well give you double jump, because I think that's how you're gonna get through on this other side. I was right. But yeah, at the start of each level, there's some word, some form of speech being said, and it's slowly becoming more apparent with each level. And I think that's a really cool use of audio engineering to do some storytelling. you're going to need double jump for sure. Whoop. Hit the wrong button and almost fell off the platform. That would have been bad. Oh, okay. I get it. They need a bit of a bounce. Pixel Cloud. Meow. Well, that looks different.
Joe and Sam ran. They had no idea where these final portals would lead, but it had to be better than this.
Up and to the right. Remember, up and to the right. Well, that looks interesting. They leapt. That would have been more climactic if they were on the correct side. So in the end, it wasn't even Paul or Gray who were fighting. It was just the couple. Basically, the two most normal of the crowd. They just wanted to live their life. That escaped first. But as we saw from like those little quotes, these AIs achieved a level of both sentience and cognizance that more or less granted them personhood. And I think there's a lot to obviously be discussed around the morality of that, and the, especially in light of emerging AI technology. But within a story, a little different. And it does have that beautiful... it has elements both of Plato's Cave and Christological sacrifice and salvation. Do not suffer a machine in the likeness of a human mind. Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to put it. But I think in the context of this story, as a story, not necessarily, oh, we should live this out, but again, stories are important. And, you know, we can extrapolate and look at metaphors, and instead of looking at these AIs as AIs and looking at them as people, you know, being able to see both a desire for salvation that is innate to the human heart and seeking. Now, I think obviously this game kind of would lead to a Pelagian theology if you were to treat it as a theological treatise, which I'm not. I'm just saying, but there are theological elements innate in how we tell stories. Maybe you've been reading too much Dune, maybe. But, you know, this has those elements that Thomas, who went from being alone, found companionship, and ultimately knowledge. You know, he is the one who goes out of the cave from Plato's allegory. And what's interesting is he doesn't necessarily drag others out, which is what Plato suggests you need to do. even though it's going to be hard. Instead, he kind of brings the light back in a way and gives others an opportunity to experience the fullness of the light. Obviously, by sacrificing himself, there's a beautiful, I've already said this several times, but parallels with the sacrifice of Christ. There's no resurrection for Thomas, but there is an element by which giving of himself is the process by which others are enabled to live more fully, which is an important part, not the totality, but an important part of Christ's sacrifice, and one that we are called to live out in our lives too, in certain ways of how do we give of ourselves sacrificially, being priests of the baptismal priesthood, to love and serve others, to give of ourselves to help others to encounter God's love and to encounter them in their need, to help them and to free them from, hunger, sickness, sin, whatever it is. So yeah, that's Thomas Was Alone. I think it's got a lot going on. I think it's something worth reflecting on. Maybe, and again, it's not perfect, but does it have to be? No. It does not have to be. Because we can still get positives out of it and say, oh, okay, I see some of the light, I see some of the parallels, and draw out from that. Then help us make sense of our own lives, our own world, our own faith, everything going on, and, maybe see it a little more clearly. So, stories are great. I am a huge fan of stories, as you might have been able to tell, just based on what I do on this channel. But yeah. We have a lot of time left, though. This is a little bit shorter than I had anticipated. There is always Minecraft. That's actually what I was thinking. You have to give me a moment. But yeah, let's switch over to some Minecraft. Come back here. But I hope you all enjoyed Thomas Was Alone. It is a fun puzzle platformer as well, just in and of itself. But like I said, I think the story's interesting, well told. It's got some fun questions in it, vis-a-vis AI sacrifice. And I really love that Thomas, with all of his knowledge of the internet, the thing he decides to do is to help others. Like, he's not selfish. There's always Minecraft. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed Thomas Was Alone. It's one of my favorite indie games of the last, 15 years. Did I find Dark Oak? Okay, so this is extra funny. I looked on a seed map, and we just barely missed noticing one because it was like buried in the middle of a thick forest, and there was a dark forest, and it's like, oh, I could have found one. So no, I did not go back to it. Have not found it, but I did decide I'll just make the confessionals out of spruce, and I actually made one. So, just a little simple Roman-style confessional. There's no outside, or there's no, like, room for the penitent. Like, literally, you just go up and kneel, and there's a screen, and the priest just sits in the middle. So it kind of looks like that. But I did use these trapdoors just to create, obviously extend this out, but I think it helps the whole wall. And then the oak ones is the shape of a cross. Makes it look like a bit of a railing. So I like how it turned out. But we've got to build the second one there. Where did I put all my spruce? There's some of it. Let's see, I need probably, yeah, that should be enough. We'll need more, but I've got spruce growing out here in the field. MT Jacobich, team to time out. All right. You there, Steps here? You want to give Jacobich just a little, just a weak timeout? Oh, thank you, Gale. Also good to see you, Gale. Guessing you've been lurking. Banished to the Shadow Realm. Well, for what bit? I find it funny that that's one of just the like de facto recommended like Twitch redeems. Like they just recommend like, oh, do this. Yeah, working on projects. That's fair. Totally get that. Brayherd has redeemed a father joke. I heard a really funny one on P. Tony's stream the other day. And I can't even remember what it was. That bothers me. But, this is a good one. Would you like to hear my story about screws, nuts, and bolts? People say it's riveting. I remember I have a sound effects board. So, yep, there's the spruce. So let's go get an axe. Of course, I guess I'm spoiling chat rotten this week. I'm getting 2 days with Minecraft because we'll be back tomorrow with more midweek Minecraft. I suppose that's a fair trade for the terrible puns. Minecraft is on Wednesday, but we finished Thomas is Alone. But I didn't feel like jumping into the next Spirituality Tuesday game, so. Instead, Minecraft. We're working on a church. It's kind of like a. That's got spiritual themes. What is the next Tuesday game? The next Tuesday game is called 5:10 The Guardians of David. I don't even remember what it is. I think it's an action. I want to say it's like an action adventure game, but I'm not positive. Watching from the road. Yep, that's all good. Hope you're traveling safe. Oh, I forgot to pick up. I have the iron bars. Oh well. Oh, and I need to make some oak trapdoors. I think Father Evan reviews Chick Tracks might be an entertaining stream. One of those tracks says the song was founded by Jesuits. Is that true? Wow. I do Chick Tracks. For the record, I know you're not driving, but I can still hope you're traveling safe, but I get you're sharing that for everyone else too. I forgot to make the oak plank, or make the oak trapdoors. I'm feeling so forgetful. Guest priest. Father Evan reads, the death cookie. Father Evan says, no. I am aware of that Chick Tract. No. Maybe I should use some of these chiseled bookshelves as decoration, particularly like the sacristy. I think that might look good. But for now, 2 oak trapdoors, please. Oh, I can put this way too. Trail of blood? No, that's okay. That's okay, we don't have to. There we go. 2 nice little confessionals. So we have confessionals, we have our main altar, and we have our secondary altar with the tabernacle at it. Ultimately, I think spruce is the better choice, though. I think the dark oak planks, I think that was a little bit of providence. I think they're darker, but they're not as dark as dark oak, obviously. So I think it works out well. And then I think their trapdoors work well because they're solid, so it looks just like a piece of the wall. If I could open that out the other way, I would, but ideally, I'd want one here too, because you can like close it up. So if you want to do face to face, you just like kneel right in front. You probably there's like a picture of Pope Francis doing that at a penance service. I think my heart would stop if I got a phone call saying, the Holy Father has asked you to be his confessor. That just sounds like it'd be too tough of a job. Oh, I also got some more smooth sandstone off screen. What to start next? So we have 9 more towers to build. We have 2 wings to build, and the facade, the apse. I've decided I am going to attempt an apse on this, which is, and then the windows here. So what I want to do is basically a couple of just vertical bars and like a rose window up here. Oh, also I knocked out this part of the wall from where there will be stained glass windows, because that makes it a little bit brighter, nicer to work in. Suppose we could knock that out, but I don't feel like it. But yeah, considering we started this in April, and obviously I haven't been streaming Minecraft or playing nonstop that whole time, I feel like we have pretty good progress. Maybe we'll just do some birchwood collection right now, because we need a lot more birchwood to complete all of our buttresses. Trailblood is the one that shares unbroken succession from modern independent fundamentalist Baptists back to the Apostles, the various heretical groups like Montanists and Donatists, and the Cathars. Oh, fun! It's a really interesting choice, choosing to try and find your succession through literal heretics, but, you know, here we are. I'm back. Glad to have you back. But totally understandable if you have to step away again. Need all these saplings, because we need to repopulate this forest. So we're going to need to get even more wood at some point. The fact that they rediscovered the idea of apostolic succession and picked the Cathars, the Paulicians, of all people, to claim their lineage will never stop being hilarious. all this up. I don't want the server to surprise lag out. Of course, I'm not traveling halfway around the world today. What? Nope. Swap. Two stacks and some change. That's barely gonna do much. But that'll help. Why aren't you decaying? There you go, decay. I wish you could turn saplings into coal or something, because I have so many from this. Yeah, look at that. I have 3 full stacks already. I just put that onto the wrong spot. Working on the church? Yep. Why do we build the church? My children. My children. Very Franciscan. I try to be ecumenical. That joke works better with Jesuits, of course. Put those there for now. It's not where they're going to be in the end, but... Oh, right, I don't have a hill on this side. I need to fill that in. Do I have spare dirt? I have some. Ah, there's my dirt. Still not gonna be enough to terraform that whole hill, I think. I suppose I don't have to fill this in. Could leave it hollow and then just make sure it's lit underneath so nothing spawns. For now, I think I'm just going to build this shelf, and then I'm going to terraform it out. Kind of like curve this way eventually and down. But terraforming is one of my least favorite things to do in Minecraft. I'm good at evoking natural. I'm not good at making natural. Okay, so here's the question. I want this and the other space to be the two sacristies, essentially. One a working sacristy, one a vesting sacristy. Should I put the door... I guess I should probably put the door, like, here. So if I knock this wall out, I can put the door there. Yeah, that's pretty hidden with a pillar right there, I guess. And then put it out like that. And obviously connected, but... So I guess I would need to do the same on this side as well. So I probably want doors on both sides. Meep. Did Meep appear? I didn't see Meep. I'm guessing Meep appeared if Nanakit said Meep. Yeah, it's a little larger, but... How's that look from, like, the vertical footprint? Yeah, I guess if you're looking from the dome, you won't even see it. Like, not until you zoom way out. But then you're even game again. Visual MM! Let us play clever. Hey, glad you like it. I am proud of that pun. Welcome. Hope you are having a good day. Huge. It's got a decent size, I guess. Looks impressive from that view. Thank you. I'm pretty proud of how it's turning out and coming along. Yeah, I think the blocks are supposed to be 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. So then maybe from here on the bell tower. Yeah, I think proportionally this church is kind of a little insane in its ultimate scope, but I think... Or from, like, a human perspective, at least, but not going off the whole 1 meter thing, but just going off of the feel of how tall is a Steve. So I think that's it's a decent curve. I'll probably shape it up a little bit around the towers as well, but then from where this line is, kind of drag it out. To flatten it out. But that sounds like a future Evan problem. So I need to redesign this sacristy space as well. So it's a little easier because it's not... on top of something, and I can get a little dirt while I'm at it. This side is so much easier to terraform because it's basically already at the level I want it. hollow this out so I can put the proper flooring in. Which I might just do this, like, polished deep slate all the way through in the sacristy, rather than trying to put in a pattern or anything. I have some ideas for a facade, but I'm still kind of toying with different styles and options for how to close this off. Nope. Don't want to put the wood there. Yeah, look, we already used a full stack of wood. Just doing a few of these towers, or columns. Oh, I wanted to grab the flooring, not the walling. Is that a word, walling? If flooring is a word, I feel like walling should be a word. But yeah, polished deep slate. I have to get more. Do I have more just like cobbled deep slate? Is that what that's made of? I have plenty of bricks. Tile is what the Confessio is made of. Meow. This won't even be enough to fill this area. Yeah, I feel like this will be a decent space. It's like you can walk in. It's the working sacristy, probably like counter sink and sacrarium over here. Vesting sacristy, main vestments, and then kind of like a closet situation. We'll worry about decorating later. I think for the sacristy, it probably only needs to be 3 blocks tall in the middle. Like, I think anything else is gonna be too tall. Yeah, I was too lazy to find another way back up there. Yeah, these are confessionals right here. Roman-style confessionals. Just priest in a box. Priest in a box, as God intended. And then you open the box. Exactly. And then your sins are forgiven. Yeah, the confessionals were a surprisingly simple little build. I was trying to think, and then I just started doing it, and I just was like, oh, okay. Okay, so that's where the windows are going to be. This is really coming together. I thought Priest in a Box was a priest hole in England. I mean, por qué no los dos? Yeah, we got all the calcite we need for this. So yeah, not bad for just kind of like a little 30-minute impromptu thing. Thomas is alone, and then he wasn't, and then he wasn't existing anymore, but he passed on his ability to others. And what did they do? They did Minecraft. Did Thomas die? Thomas sacrificed himself. He actually willingly gave up his life along with the 6 other companions of his, known as the Architects, which enabled other AI to take on their abilities, their mutations, which enabled those AI to then seek freedom. Church looks nice and airy. Thank you. That was definitely one of the ideas. And then, like, ultimately, all the windows are going to be kind of inspired. This is another part of the Sagrada Familia inspiration, is just very colorful stained glass, no particular patterning, which would, in theory, fill this area up with a lot of really interesting, colorful light. Obviously, it doesn't actually do that because I don't have ray tracing installed. And I'm too lazy. I think my GPU might be able to handle it, but it is a previous generation, so... But it's top of the line of previous generation, so maybe... I don't know. Yeah. Definitely within the dome, I want to do something with some amount of light. I don't want to completely close it off. Obviously, the bell tower in the middle of that is going to be like the other bell towers. RTX Minecraft churches will be interesting. Yeah. Minecraft RTX is really pretty sometimes. But yeah, it'll be kind of like this. A little dark towards the bottom, but very light up in the top. Did Thomas commit suicide, or was it a different choice? I wouldn't say he committed suicide. Because he willingly sacrificed himself, and so, like, yes, his life ended, but obviously, like, that's a very human concept in human words. And then, yeah, he was unalive. That's for dark. He gave up his self-awareness to integrate his programming into the greater world. So he kind of effused himself outward. But this was a choice of his to help the others. It was not forced. It was not coerced. It was not accidental. It was intentional. In answer to your question, I actually have these two pulpits built into the steps of the underneath the baldacchino here, which I like. I like how they turned out. I like the use of the oak trapdoors, making crosses in the pulpits to be ambos. So, you could have one for the choir master and one for the readings. You have the seat here for the presider and his two assistant deacons. And then down here, we have a lapis lazuli tomb and some relics in the confessio, and that is placed directly underneath the altar. Baldacchino. Hey, I know that word now. Yeah. Hit the snooze button real quick. We'll take one last aerial view. So yeah, I like how this is coming along. This has been a fun project. I would estimate we're probably... given that we have all these bell towers, like that's the deceptive thing. It's like, oh, it looks like we're so much closer to being done than we are. It's, well, yeah, but you get these bell towers. That was the thing. Not at all in the classified. Yep. I'd say we're probably about 40% done, because I also have a lot of detailing work to do, because obviously all of the stained glass windows, and then on the inside using steps to kind of round it out. So like you can see looks very blocky this side. Yeah, looks a little smoother, and then can make some nice little shelves around the steps that kind of mirror the outside construction here. So trying to wrap my mind around when it's a sacrifice or a suicide. I think a sacrifice is for someone else. And a suicide is a complicated thing, but generally more inwardly focused. And I that is a way too brief of a way to describe it that will really give it justice. But that's kind of the best I can do in this moment, in this space. So. And if you're someone who's struggling with that sort of thing, those struggles are real, and my prayers are with you, and please know, there's help out there to help you. So, do I mind a question about Catholicism? Absolutely, go ahead. Lay it on me. I'm going to go to the booth, because we're going to wrap up with this question. Not yet. No, I know Nanocat, but I was just putting it out there. What's with the Sabbath being on Sunday? Okay, so Old Testament Sabbath is Saturday. It's the historical day that Jewish peoples still regard as the Sabbath, the day of rest, reflecting on the days of creation. The week starts on Sunday, ends on Saturday. In Genesis, it says God rested on the seventh day, and then it is further made manifest where God, in various parts where God is like, rest on the Sabbath. So that's where the Jewish idea comes from. Within Christianity, it becomes Sunday because of the resurrection. The way that we view, because Christ died on a Friday, rose on a Sunday, and from his resurrection, new creation bursts forth. Instead of looking at the initial creation, we look at the new creation and say, oh, okay, this is the new day. This is the day of creation. This is the new beginning. And so that's why we treat Sunday as the day of worship, because we're commemorating Christ's resurrection, uh, being on a Sunday, Easter Sunday, but every Sunday. And so then that kind of takes on the idea of, okay, well, this is the day of worship. This is also the day of rest, the day to honor God. Are there commandments or missives or whatnot in the New Testament to change the Sabbath, or was that something developed historically? I don't remember anything off the top of my head of anything in the New Testament specifically stating like, Sunday will be this. So like in that sense, more historically developed, but it's also not a hard one to see happening very quickly. Like Justin Martyr talks about it in the 2nd century of like, yeah, we gather on Sundays and also on Wednesdays for prayer. But yeah, it was very much like not a, the first disciples of Christ were themselves Jewish, and we actually hear in Acts of the Apostles. Why Wednesday? That's a great question. I've never gotten a satisfactory answer myself. But I guess the midweek slump. Sorry for no. Questions are great. Questions are why we're here. But there, we can see actually in Acts of the Apostles that it talks about the apostles worshiping in the temple, and then enjoying the Eucharistic meal together, like gathering together for the intentional commemoration of Christ and breaking bread. So they were still very much observing that Sabbath, but also Sunday. So, it's kind of a both and. But then obviously as more and more Gentiles became Christian, the concept of Saturday as a Sabbath kind of drifted off. And I think that further added to Sunday taking on sort of that Sabbath sense of rest and a day set aside for God and rest. So I hope that helps answer your questions. Those are great questions. So are there any strains of Christianity which adhere to Jewish religious laws? So it's not it's in a weird, complicated third category where it's like not kind of Christian, not really Jewish, but there's like Jews for Christ is a thing. I don't know a lot about it, but I do know it kind of exists in its own third way where they follow some of those. Also, actually, Paul himself talks about like, we often think of Paul as like, oh, we don't have to be Jewish anymore. It's like, no, Jewish. Paul was very Jewish himself and told the Jewish disciples, look, you still have this covenant. The Gentiles don't have to take that on because they have the new they share in the new covenant with you by baptism, but you're still part of God's chosen people. You still have this covenant. You still have the Sabbath. You still have the Passover. So there's a case to be made that if a Jewish person becomes Christian, that they should also still observe some of the Jewish holidays and traditions and rules, etc. themselves. Now, I think that's obviously something that has to be more nuanced and figured out, and in this space I can't always do it justice, but it is something worth considering. So Brayherd, I've read that the association of Sunday with the Sabbath, Ten Commandments, didn't take off into a legalistic tendency of Calvinism, conflated the two. It's just that on Sunday we celebrate Christ risen from the dead, traveling down death by death, and upon those two in the tomb bestowing life. Amen. The first century church before Christianity, yeah, Saturday services, synagogue, temple. So yeah, no, questions are always welcome. It's what I have AMA as a tag for a reason. But no, those were great questions. Yeah, so I hope those help to answer. And no, you're always welcome, and everyone's always welcome here to ask questions. But I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Oh, one more question. This is going to be the last question that I actually do have to sign off. I have other work to attend to. So do Christians feel the same obligation to not work on Sunday? That's complicated. I think definitely in the last century, yes, but in the start of the 21st century, that changed just because of various realities. I do remember hearing of pastors having sermon series on the importance of respecting the Sunday as the Sabbath and not working, etc. And like, there's different ideas of what that means and different cultural contexts. So again, it's not something that can be quickly or easily nailed down. Um, um, so yeah, I don't think we're quite as good as it was used to be, and I think part of this is just like, and what rest means is also a matter of interpretation, because like for some historically, rest has meant doing nothing, you know. Others, rest means being with family, having a good time, having a good meal, not doing work in the sense of something that earns you a paycheck. So you know, you kind of have those two ends of the spectrum and everything kind of in between. So exactly what it is, you know, it's complicated. I do invite folks though more on an individual basis. I haven't really preached on this, but definitely to the importance of rest. I mean, God himself rested, both in the creation and obviously Christ rested in many ways. Like, rest is good, rest is important. We treat it as a frivolity sometimes in our modern culture, and I think that's a mistake. So it's, you know, to be able to say, hey, it's okay to not always be working, to not always be going, to not always be striving. It's okay to take a breather, relax, you know, do something that is good for you, you know, with, you know, engage in a hobby. I thoroughly encourage hobbies. Hobbies are incredibly important to your mental state. So I encourage having them. So, but yeah, no, happy to answer your questions, Visual M&M. And yeah, you're always welcome to come by and ask more questions. But yeah, but I do have to get going, I'm afraid. So I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Uh, See you again tomorrow for more Minecraft. Today was just a teaser, but we're going to keep working on the church. Um, Probably actually set aside some time to do some real work, some real building on it. Um, and then Thursday, hopefully finish off Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, if not get very close to the end. And then next Monday, back to more Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. And Tuesday, we're going to be starting at 5 um, Guardians of David. That's its name. Okay, Max, good to see you. Glad you were lurking. Thank you for the lurk. But yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you so much for everyone for liking, following, subscribing, checking out the YouTube, checking out the Discord, all that good jazz. Shout out to you, YouTube. Love you folks over there. And let's see who's live to raid. So I'm not really a huge fan of Fortnite. So there's someone streaming it. It's like, I kind of want to send you over that way. Or there's Yuha doing some Dead by Daylight. Which way do you want to go, chat? Recognizing that you have the complete autonomy to just log off and go somewhere else. But if you raid, you get channel points. Dead by Daylight, I got 2 votes for that. That it is. Gonna raid on over to Yuha. He's a cool Christian streamer. Nice dude. Raid call is just Father Raid. Spam the meat morp if you've got it. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Take care and God bless.